told Chris that he'd better disinfect my microphone just in case. All right. Is everyone doing okay? Good. Okay, good. All right. By the way, the whole Pepper Jack's thing, Nate's trying to convince Matt to go to a specific restaurant in Columbia when it requires an extra 30-minute drive. But Nate, being the food connoisseur he is, says it is worth it. And well, he's just saw the pictures, so all right. Okay. By the way, I really do want to thank you guys, not just in passing for the announcements, but I really do want to thank you guys for all your help for the winter banquet. It's been super helpful, and I hope you guys had fun. That's my major thing. I just hope you guys had fun. I hope it was a good time. I hope you guys relaxed, laughed, and had a good time. Let's get on topic. Has anyone ever seen a giraffe give birth? Let's talk about it. That's how I'm opening my sermon today. So, there's a guy named Gary that I read a story about one time. He was visiting the zoo, and they were having a birth of a new baby giraffe. And he was like, well, that's something I never thought I would see, so yeah, let's go watch it, I guess. I mean, why not, right? I mean, when in Rome. And so he's going and he's watching the birth of a giraffe, and he's sitting right next to the zookeeper. And the zookeeper's kind of, telling what's going on. And a lot of us have probably seen the birth of a calf or a cow or something. We're in Missouri, for goodness sakes. And the guy looks at the zookeeper and he says, so when is she gonna lay down? And the zookeeper says, she's not. What do you mean she's not? I mean, that has to be at least a 10-foot, 7-foot drop. And he says, well, yep, that's how it goes. And he just shook his head. He couldn't believe it. So he's just sitting there in just amazement about how this is going to go down. So, the legs start coming out and slowly, and then suddenly out of nowhere, just one push from the mama, and the baby giraffe comes over 7 feet down, falls straight on its back. And it's not moving. It's just laying there. And Gary's saying, is everything okay? And he says, just wait. Give it time. So he's sitting there watching, and Gary cannot believe what's going on. And then something happened. The mother goes over to the baby giraffe and does one thing that all mothers would do to their newborn baby. She kicks him. And Gary's like, okay, that is not okay. What is going on? And he says, she's trying to get him to move, trying to get him to stand up. And well, give him a second. I mean, come on. And then a couple seconds, and then mom goes over again, kicks him. Gary's just shaking his head at this point. Gary, watching this little baby giraffe trying to stumble to his feet and then falls down. The mother giraffe goes over again and kicks him, just knocks him. And I mean, if I wouldn't, thank goodness I didn't see this video and hear the story before Demi was born. Let's just say, if she, come on, why aren't you walking yet? So this little giraffe finally stands up, and it gets stable and starts walking a few steps. And Gary's like, great. And then what does the mother do? She goes over and she kicks it, literally, like they said, the stories told him, like a little over 10 feet. She knocked that giraffe butt on the ground. And he looks at the zookeeper and he says, what is she doing? And he says, she's trying to, help him so he remembers how he got up in the first place. She's just trying to help him. And Gary just couldn't understand. And I love that story not only because it was an excuse to show a live giraffe birth in class for the youth. Sorry parents. But it happened. It was educational. It's National Geographic, don't worry. But also, it makes me think I can somehow relate to this baby giraffe. Have you guys ever just been kicked? Not literally, because yes, I am a student pastor. I've been kicked a few times in my life. Noah. I've been kicked. Have you guys ever been kicked while you were down? And have you ever been kicked by somebody you expected kindness from? I mean, that baby giraffe was probably not expecting to be kicked by his own mother several times as soon as he exits the womb. Probably not in the realm of his possibilities. But it happens. So we're going to be talking about, who can you guess today? Anybody see his Facebook post yesterday, or you can read up on the wall? Who are we talking about? Joseph. Old Testament or New Testament? Old Testament. The original Joe Mama. All right? Everyone turn to Genesis. Genesis 37 is where we start. I'm going to pull up my Bible as well. This story is honestly probably one of my favorites to teach on, to read, and to reflect on, because it is a phenomenal story. Is everyone familiar with the story of Joseph? If you were raised in church, you probably were. If you weren't raised in church like me, you probably weren't. Let's see. Joseph is a story of a man, and as soon as we hear about him, we start reading about the story. How old is he, do you think? Teenager? 17 years old. Joseph was 17 years old when we start this story. Who was Joseph's dad? Louder? Jacob. Okay. All right. Jacob had how many sons? 12. 12? 12? Okay, 12. All right. Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob. 11th son. Jacob had a wife named Rachel that had recently passed away. Not recently, I guess. But he was in love with Rachel, Jacob was. He was absolutely in love with Rachel. Head over heels. Loved her with all of his heart. And the only son that he had with Rachel was who? Joseph. He was in love with Rachel, and because that was his only son with Rachel, he loved Joseph too. I'm sorry? I'm sorry? Probably. Oh, son after. Okay, yeah, sorry. I meant sorry. It was his favorite son. Stay with me, sorry. It was his favorite son, and it was very open that it was his favorite son. You guys ever have a favorite son or daughter? Don't raise your hand. Don't do that. Demi, I'm going to tell you right now, Demi is definitely my favorite daughter. By far my favorite daughter. But Jacob, his favorite son was Joseph, and it was very well known. Very well known to his brothers as well. Have you ever known that your parents had a favorite child and that child wasn't you? I mean, that would hurt, right? Well, the story of Joseph starts when he starts receiving a little bit of dreams from God. God starts talking to him in his dreams, and he has two dreams in particular that are symbols for everyone bowing down, his brothers and everyone bowing down to Joseph. And what does Joseph do with these dreams? He tells his brothers, he tells his family. How would you react if your brother said, yeah, I had a dream that you were bowing down to me, that one day you're going to, I'm going to be ruling over you? How would you react? You probably wouldn't like it. You'd probably complain. You'd probably bicker. He'd probably become the least favorite brother in the house. But this is what Joseph did. He had dreams, and he told people, and he expressed the dreams, and he was excited about these dreams. And at one point, his dad loved him so much more than everyone else, that every other of his sons, that he looked at Joseph and he says, I'm going to give you something. And what was that? It was a coat, a tunic of sorts. And there was two types of specific tunics back in the day, where one was kind of shorter sleeve and it cut off at the knee. And then there was another one that when Joseph had that was full of color. That was a different material. That was more long sleeve, that was a little bit longer. And it wasn't meant for working in. The other ones were. If you were wearing a coat like Joseph, the one he had, that meant he was a type of manager, an overseer. So when he got this coat, that just kicked the brothers while they were down, in a sense. It just made the situation a little bit worse. So Joseph had this coat. He was having these dreams, and the brothers were getting kind of angry and upset with Joseph. Okay? So what do? They plot to throw him in a hole. They plot to kill him, first off. They plot to kill him. And so all the brothers, have you ever had all of your siblings literally build and plan a plot to kill you? I have not reached that level of brotherhood. I'm trying, I haven't got there yet, quite as Joseph, but I've never reached there. But all of his brothers surround themselves around each other, communicate, and they say, listen, we want to get rid of Joseph. Let's get rid of Joseph. So they convince Joseph to go out with them, with his coat and everything. And then one person said, listen, we can't kill him. We can't do that. He was feeling a little guilty. So here's an idea. Instead of killing him and getting it over with, let's do something not as mean. Let's throw him in a well and let him starve to death. Right? That makes sense. That's totally a lot much nicer. Thank you, brother. So they decide, let's throw him in a well. Let's throw him in a pit. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever thrown somebody in a pit before. I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands because, like I said, we're going to prison today. We could bring you along. But I've never gotten that angry. But all of these brothers, what do you think? These were brothers just like you and me. These were people who had siblings just like you and me. And they were to a point so angry that they were literally going to kill their brother. All of them combined were on agreement, let's get rid of this guy. When I think of this, I don't think it's just anger, because it doesn't just happen like that. A lot of anger is just real quick split, right? What would you call that? A long brewing anger. I would say bitterness. Would you agree? There's a verse on Ephesians, Gina, if you can get that pulled up. Ephesians 4, 31 through 32. It talks a little bit about bitterness. But I think that's exactly what the brothers had. And it says, let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving each other, just as God in Christ also has forgiven you. These brothers had bitterness. It wasn't just anger. Anger passes. Anger goes away. You feel a little strong anger and then you move on. Bitterness was being held on by these brothers because they heard all of the dreams that Joseph had. They saw the favoritism from their father. As a sibling, there couldn't be something more frustrating than having bitterness towards somebody with like your father. Having favoritism toward someone besides you. When you're expecting love and kindness from a parent, the bitterness grows. And so the brothers were bitter. They were angry. And the bitterness I want to describe, there's a difference between bitterness and anger, okay? That's something I want to explain, because the brothers weren't just acting out of anger, they were acting out of bitterness. And bitterness is an anger directed not towards something specific. Because let me ask you, everyone believes in God, right? Everyone here believes in God, believes in the God that we're talking about right now. The one that wrote this story. Put this story down. God says, listen, bitterness, got to get rid of it. So when we are bitter, if you believe in God, and if you believe in God, it controls every situation, every detail, everything is in His control. I'm telling you right now, if you are bitter, you are not bitter at a person or a problem or a situation. You are not angry at them. You are angry at God. Does that make sense? If you truly do believe God is in control of everything in your life, and whatever you're railing against, whatever you're angry at, sometimes it's hard to admit, even for me, especially for me, is that most of the time when I'm angry at someone, I'm actually angry at God for something that He allowed, something that He did or did not do. Can you guys relate to that? We feel anger towards people. We feel bitterness because God allowed something to happen. And as Christians, that happens all the time in the church. And then we feel like these brothers, we are those brothers where we can't stand a certain person because, they're the boss's lapdog. Or because, the parents like that kid more. Or this person gets all the attention. And we get bitter and we get angry. And that's exactly what Joseph's brothers were doing. So one person realizes, okay, let's throw him into a well and let's just leave him. They grab his coat, and then they see somebody passing by, and they say, listen, hey, how about this? Let's not kill him. Let's not throw him in a well and let him starve. Let's do something at least, nice. Sell him into slavery, at least he gets to live that way, right? So that's what happens. Joseph, and I know most of you probably heard this story before, but even if you have, oh well, I'm going to tell it anyway, all right? It's a good story, and there's a lot we can learn. So Joseph's brothers throw him and pretty much sell him into slavery. And Joseph is thrown into slavery and taken away. The brothers go home, bring his coat, and they pretty much tell Jacob that his favorite son has passed away, that has died. How would you feel? Jacob's favorite son's gone. So now Joseph is in slavery. How long was Joseph in slavery? Anybody know? He was 28 when we pick up the story for him being in Potiphar's house. So that's 11 years. Now, I went to high school in Southeast Kansas, so I got 4 words for you. I'm not good at math. But that's a lot of days. 11 years, 365 times 11. Get back to me on the math later. That is a long time. So I don't want you guys to overthink that it's 11 years, no big deal. This is a person that actually existed, that actually was sold into slavery and spent time being a slave for 11 years. Ever seen 12 Years a Slave? Well, they're just showing off because they're trying to one-up Joseph. But it was 11 years. He was 11 years he was a slave. And where we pick up on the story is where Joseph has made his way to being a right-hand man for a very powerful man. Who was that? Potiphar. Okay, so you have, Pharaoh, right? Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, the big guy, the top dog. And then you have Pharaoh, and then right down here you have his people that he trusted to be in charge, and there was Potiphar, among others. And he was in charge of the guards and almost the security and just organizing all of that. And Joseph had made friends with him and had been so loyal and such a upstanding slave that he was moved and trusted into Potiphar's house. He was his right-hand man. Think about that. In all of that, 11 years, and he chose to not give up, to not slack off and be a horrible human being and just get on by. But he chose to work. He got promoted. He looked at where he was and he still thought, I can move up from here. How many of us would just give up? I know I would. I was just like, my brothers just sold me into slavery. Like, there's no way I'm moving up from here. But Joseph moves up, and he's trusted. And Joseph must have been a very attractive guy because Potiphar's wife has been eyeing him for a while. Potiphar's wife goes up to Joseph and tries to seduce him. She pretty much throws all caution in the wind and says, hey, I want you. I want you with me. What does Joseph say? What would you have said? Out of all of this, out of all of what Joseph did, he says no. Potiphar's wife doesn't take rejection so well. Not well at all, actually. Joseph tries to walk away. She grabs him, grabs his tunic, all his clothing off of him, strips it off of him, screams rape, and Joseph runs out. Once again, think of Joseph's mindset. Joseph would rather run around naked in front of his peers and all the people out of Potiphar's house instead of do something he probably wouldn't have got caught for, and something that he probably had thought about and probably been tempted with several times, because she probably tried to seduce him 1 or 2 times before and try to make passes at him. But yet, he says no. Amazing. So Potiphar finds out, and he's ticked off, and he says, Joseph, you're going to prison. You're going to prison. Prison in a place like that, we can only imagine, wasn't very great, right? We don't really get a whole lot of hints into it, but if we pull up the Psalms verse, it says right there, it kind of gives us an idea. If you look back, it gives us an idea and opening into what Joseph did and what it was like for Joseph in prison. He said, he sent a man before them, Joseph, who was sold as a slave. They afflicted his feet with fetters. He himself was laid in irons. What is someone else's other translation? What does it say right there? Never again. I don't want you guys to turn there. It's okay. But my translation, it said right here, let's see. He sent a man before them, Joseph, sold as a slave. They bruised his feet with shackles, and his neck was put in irons. He was put in prison, an iron around his neck. I mean, he had worked 11 years to get up where he was with Potiphar. And then some woman screws it up for him. I didn't mean to specifically say woman, no big deal, but it was Potiphar's wife. She ignored all the hard work that he did, and just because he said no to her, he got upset. She got upset. And he's now paying the price. Now, the youth will know, I taught on this story a couple times, and there is something throughout this story that keeps happening, that keeps being said 7 times actually throughout this story. What is that phrase that is said 7 times? If you guys have ever read this story, you may have recognized it. It was 7 times, just a little short little phrase. And the Lord was with Joseph. Thank you, Nate. And the Lord was with Joseph. He says that when he's being sold into slavery, when he's in Potiphar's house, when he's in prison. Throughout the story, God says, and I was with Joseph. And God was with Joseph. Now, why do we repeat things? Thank you, David. Star student right there. A+ row. This is the A+ row. For emphasis, he said. We repeat things for emphasis. If you are a teacher or who have ever taught, or ever tried to listen to illustrate some rules, you repeat certain rules in certain things for emphasis, because it is important. Do not talk. Do not run. Do not hit. And you say that 5 times because for emphasis, it is important to realize, listen, this is important. So when we're reading Genesis and we're reading Joseph's story, we keep hearing this one little phrase over and over again. The Lord was with Joseph, and the Lord was with Joseph, and the Lord was with Joseph. And we realize, wait a minute, we're not just trying to fill space, right? We're not just trying to fill words on a page. No, every single word in Scripture is put there for a reason. So he's saying, listen, and the Lord was with Joseph. Maybe that's an important part of Scripture. Maybe. He says, listen, in all that, underneath, God's telling you, I'm going to be with you. You remember Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego when they're in the fire? There was 3 men that were thrown in the fire, but how many people were seen in there? 4. So, they had this life before, but then they're thrown into the fire, the most trying time of their life, the hardest obstacle they've ever had to face, and God was with them? Ain't that interesting? Joseph's going through struggles we'll never even comprehend. Thank goodness. Thank goodness none of us will just be sold into slavery. Like, that's not a common thing. Like, hey, let's get Greg out there and sell him slave. We need some extra cash, right? Come on, get him out there. That's not a thing. And if there was a well out here, there'd probably be some disciplined kids out there. That'd be like the timeout area. But I'm telling you right now, God was with Joseph. And that's the important thing. And a lot of you guys have probably, especially the youth, they're like, Andy, we've already heard this. We know the story of Joseph. We know that he was with us. We know that Jesus says, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. Jesus says, I will be with you to the very end of the age. I will be with you. I will be with you. He's with me at home. He's with me at work. He's with me at school. We get it, Andy. God is with us. It's a pretty Christian, what do you call it? Christianese instead of Chinese. It's called Christianese. It's one of those Christian phrases that we say all the time. It's part of our language. God is with us. Andy, we know God is with us. But folks, what I'm asking is not, do you know that? I'm asking you, are you with God? You look back in the story, and Joseph was being told these dreams. And how many of us have really, really weird dreams, and we don't really want to tell anybody because we're like, well, I don't know. People might think I'm insane. People might be questioning my sanity. I mean, there's some where I will wake up, and me and Kelsey do it all the time. I had the weirdest dream. Everyone ever do that? Because we have some strange dreams. Joseph had really weird dreams. Yet he said, this is God talking to me. This is God communicating with me. I've got to tell somebody. How awesome is that? How often do you feel something on your heart that God's telling you? How often do you actually share it? Go tell that person that you're thinking of them. Go tell that person that you think they're actually pretty great, even though people tell them differently every single day. Go talk to that person. Go talk to that person. And God's communicating with you, and how often do we just say, nothing. It's probably just my crazy little head running little ideas. I don't want to do that. That'd be embarrassing. But Joseph says, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell the people that I care about the dreams that I'm having, that God is telling me. I'm going to tell them. He was with God. He was on the same team as God at that point. When he was being taken out, and he knew that was happening. He knew he was going to get killed. I mean, he sees them plotting around. He sees them carrying around, probably busting up their knuckles, rolling up their sleeves. He knows what's going to happen. And even when he was being thrown into a well, he knew you could have said, okay, listen, I will do whatever you need. Please don't kill me. Please don't do this. Please, I will do whatever you want. But did he? No, because he was with God. Did he try to talk to the slave traders and say, listen, they're kidnapping me, they're trying to kill me, please, I'm not supposed to be here, my dad's going to be super angry, please don't do this to me. Did he? He was with God. He went where he was led. We know God is with us. We hear it every single Sunday. We know God is with us, but what I'm asking is, are you with God? Are you with him? And we look at Joseph and the way he communicates to people and the way he went on and went through prison, went through everything. If you know the story of Joseph, no, I won't tell any spoilers because that's why we're continuing this series next week. That's why we're going from rags to riches, from when he's in the bottom, literally in the bottom, rock bottom, and moving up. Moving from rags to riches, we're learning right now. I want you to walk away this week from knowing that God was with Joseph. And now it is our job to be with him. I want you guys to get up today and leave. And through all my babbling and all my scattered thoughts, I want you to remember that you have to be with God. And God has to know you're with him. God wants to know that you have the same purpose, the same goal, the same ministry, that his life, your life is his life, that his goals are your goals, that his ministry is your ministry, that you are with him. He wants to know that. And if you don't think he wants to know that, you look back right before Jesus was crucified. He's in the garden, he's on his knees, and he's praying to God, and he says, listen, let not my will be done, but yours. Jesus is saying exactly how we should all pray. He's saying, this is what I want. Please let this happen. This is what I want. And at the very end of the prayer, he looks at God and he says, listen, but not my will be done, yours. Translation, I am with you. Here are my wants, here are my desires, here are my plans, here is everything I want for my life. Who's here? This is who I want to be with. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to chase. This is the job I want to pursue. But God, I'm on your team. I'm with you. It's not the other way around. He's not with you and he's by saying in the back seat, hey, you guys just take me wherever. It's okay. He's with you in the sense that you should be with him, where you say, listen, this is my goal. I want to please you. This is your life. Please lead me. And that's exactly what Joseph did. He looked at God and said, man, this is going to be a tough road. This is going to be tough. But I'm going to be faithful. I'm going to be with you. I choose to be with you. Now, say that today. Say that to God when you walk out of here, when you see the people next to you, and you know that you should probably say hi to that person. You should probably maybe volunteer for something. You should probably go home and love on your loved ones that couldn't come to church. Because that's exactly what God would want you to do. And when you do that, you're saying, God, I am with you. Pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you so much for this day. I just want to thank you for this chance to share a really awesome story. An awesome story about a person who went through more than we could ever imagine, but somehow stayed faithful. So Lord, that's what we want. We want to know that we have our passions, we have our own desires, but Lord, if they align with yours, then we will have your blessing. God, we love you so much. Thank you for being with us. We thank you for that. And I pray that in return, the least that we could do is be with you. Is look at your plan, look at your path that you have laid out for us, and we can say, okay, I cannot wait for that. I want that. God, we love you. Please lead us. Amen.